Welcome back to Drinks and Dunks. I'm your host, Ben Marquardt, and we got a great show for you today. We're going through the picks. We're going to go through last week's picks. We're going to cover tonight's picks, and I'm going to go on a special mini rant at the end. So, let's get started. We're getting into the beer first. We got a special today. We got a White Tide. It is, you might get confused. It kind of looks like a Blue Moon, and that's because it's the Aldi's brand Blue Moon. A little bit of a knockoff, but here we go. Like I said, it's a White Tide. It's a Belgian white. Packaging, everything looks pretty similar to Blue Moon, if you will. So, at first taste, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty spot on. So, I would recommend it. Blue Moon isn't my favorite beer, but it's pretty good. Add a little orange slice in there. It's a pretty solid beer. It's one of those where I'm definitely going to get it at a bar, get it on tap. I'll buy a 6-pack. I'm definitely going to drink it. So I'm going to give it a 7.6, a really solid score. If I had to compare it to somebody, I'd compare it to Trae Young, kind of the knockoff Steph Curry, if you will. So, if Steph Curry is the Blue Moon, this is a Trae Young, not quite as good of a shooter, not quite as good of a passer, probably a better passer, honestly, but not as good as a generational talent. Steph's got a better handle. He makes his teammates better. He's a better defender, and the best shooter of all time. So I'm gonna say Trae Young. All right, let's get into last week's picks. If you remember, back on last Wednesday, it was the first night back after the All-Star break, so there was only 2 games, which did make it a little more difficult because they were 2 games that I probably wouldn't have picked. But if we're looking at it, I had the Wizards plus 3.5 versus Memphis, in Memphis, and they did lose by 15, so didn't start out great there. But we got it back with the Mavs -4 versus the Spurs. The Mavs ended up winning by 11 to tie us up to start the second half. Not the worst thing in the world. Tonight we're going to pick 2 W's and get into the win column and coast for the rest of the season, ideally. But those were the only 2 games, so like I said, I probably wouldn't have picked them, but that's all we had to choose from. So, we're 1-1. Can't hate on it, but got a 5-second chug coming up. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a really solid beer. It's something that I'll definitely buy more of, and would recommend anyone that shops at Aldi's just grab a 6-pack. It's pretty similar. Tonight I do have the Bucks -5.5 in Philadelphia. No Joel Embiid. Bucks have been playing really well, and I just think they're looking to prove something. And I'll get to this later. The Bucks slander this season, they're a little bit dismissed, but when they do get brought up, there's a lot of laughing them off. And a lot of inconsistencies in the coverage. I think they got a lot to prove tonight. No Embiid, Tony Bradley starting for the Sixers. And as you recall, Giannis has big games even when Embiid is there. So I fully expect them to take advantage of it and come out with something to prove tonight. I think they'll win that one pretty solidly. And then my next one, I'm going Heat +2 versus Memphis. Jimmy Butler's questionable tonight, so that one could go either way. Bam's not expected to play, but the Heat have been on an absolute tear. Won 9 of the last 10. Memphis actually hasn't been playing super well, so I'm going to go with the team that is hot right now. The Heat are up to the 4th seed in the East, and they're a team that nobody wants to play in the playoffs. So I'm going with those 2 tonight. And now for the most important part of the show. I don't do this too often, especially because I myself am a big Bucks fan, but I think the slander on the Bucks has gotten way too far. Internal slander from Bucks fans and the external stuff. If you listen to a lot of the national podcasts, right, the Bill Simmons, the Kevin O'Connor, all those guys, it's just so dismissive. And when they discuss the East, they're talking about the 76ers and the Nets, right? And I don't know if I'm just missing something here, but they talk about the 76ers as legit contenders, right? Which, I would agree with. I think they are. But when they talk about the Bucks, it's just so dismissive because of their past playoff failures, which I totally understand. Bucks fans will be the first to admit that they've underperformed in the playoffs. But what has Philadelphia done? They they got swept out of the first round. I mean, honestly, they talk about Embiid and Simmons as if they're guys that have been to multiple finals. I just don't understand how you can criticize the Bucks for not going deep in the playoffs and then talk about the Sixers, in a positive light. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's number one. And number two, a little bit more directed at Bucks fans themselves. And I understand that we're a volatile fan base, and deservedly so. We haven't really been in contention since the early 2000s. Big Dog and Ray Allen and that crew. So I get it. You've been through a lot of rough years, but if everyone should just take a step back. And this is a Bud rant mostly. And yes, he hasn't been a perfect coach by any means. And I've been the first to slander him. If you guys don't know or don't follow me, I definitely think there's enough Bud criticism to go around. But if you look at when he took over, right, 2 years ago, we were a 500 team. Giannis was scoring about low 20s a game. Took a 500 team, won 60 games the first season, wildly exceeded all expectations, right? Up 2-0 on the Toronto Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then Nick Nurse adjusts, right? And they build a wall. And Bud doesn't. He's stuck with what's gotten them there. And kind of left it up to the players to win some games. Now you look at Game 3, right? Double overtime. A couple missed shots and missed calls go the other way. And we're up 3-0 against the NBA champions. In Bud's first season, guys, it was his first year, right? So the second year, they run it back, they add a couple pieces, right? He's like, my system works. It absolutely works. And look, they were on an absolute tear. They only had 6 losses. I think it was 50 games into the season. And then COVID hits. No fans. Every fan gets taken out. There's other things going on, especially in Milwaukee, and it seemed like from the beginning of the bubble, nobody wanted to be there. I know George Hill didn't want to be there. People were questioning if they should even be playing, and the Heat just punch him in the mouth. No adjustments, because like Bud said, he believed in the system, right? And no adjustments, right? So they get knocked out in the second round, and slander galore. I get it. I was there too. So the criticism on Bud coming into this season was no adjustments. Didn't game plan differently defensively, didn't game plan differently offensively. The slander was on Bledsoe, right? So what did the Bucks do? They get rid of Bledsoe. Okay. Got Jrue Holiday, a guy who's come up big in the playoffs before, right? They get more consistent shooting because if you look at the Raptors series, Mirotic missed a ton of shots. Brook Lopez missed a ton of shots. Bledsoe, if you look at his percentages and stats from those 2 playoff runs, absolutely horrendous. I mean, the guy's shooting 20% from 3. So you bring in a guy like Jrue Holiday. You overhaul the bench to get more shooting. Bryn Forbes and Bobby Portis. And so they changed the roster up, right? That's one thing we asked them to do. Okay, check it off the list. Another thing we asked them to do was change their offense so that you can't get stopped by the wall, And what do? They put it in the dunker spot, okay? So that core in itself, that principle there, was to avoid teams loading up and having a wall. And you can kind of see it now is that it's working, guys. If you're watching their offense, it took them a little bit. Jrue missed some time with COVID. But Giannis is finding the dunker spot now. He's 3 triple-doubles in a row. He's averaging double-digit assists over the last 10 games. I mean, he's finding the guys in the dunker spot. Okay, defensive end, drop coverage. That was the big problem, right? Run some more switching, run some more, ran a little zone. And what do? They're trying switching. It's not going to be perfect. We we said, don't worry about the regular season, blah, blah, blah. Focus on the playoffs, focus on the playoffs. That's exactly what they've done. So I get it. Bucks fans are mad at Bud for losing games, but this is what we asked for, okay? And so let's ride it out, if Bud doesn't adjust and do what he's been doing this season in the playoffs, then, we can talk about moving on from him then, but he's trying these things in the regular season, and I think we owe it to a guy in his third season, and honestly, his second season was, I don't want to say asterisk, but there's a bit of a hiccup in that second season, right? So, a guy in his third season with the team and whose best player is evolving. He's becoming a better passer. He's becoming more consistent at the free throw line, too. And so let's see what happens, okay? Let's see what Jrue Holiday can bring. Let's see if they add somebody at the deadline. Add a PJ Tucker. That'd be wild. So let's see what they can do, and let's chill out on the Bud firing. Can we just enjoy watching Giannis in his prime? This guy's a top 20 all-time guy. Bucks fans, just enjoy it, okay? That's all I ask of you. I'm part of it. I've contributed to the slander, but let's just take a step back. He's doing what we want him to do, and let's enjoy Giannis' season. So I'm here to enjoy Giannis play basketball, and the Bucks play consistent and great basketball. So let's watch it. Let's watch it play out, and let's enjoy it. All right. Thanks.